that a hostile work environment. Stayed we're over here with Heidi and my God, I don't want to compete with anyone.
I'll represent us both.
But
I think that.
At 10 o'clock, I will call to order the Monday third meeting of the Policy and Procedures Committee. I assume everyone has had the opportunity to read minutes from the
Here,
previous meeting.
for my time.
If so, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Or
Moved and supported, is there any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Well, same sign, motion carries. Old business. Do we have anything under old business? Hearing nothing for old business, we'll move to new business. Certifications policy.
So at the last meeting, we did bring forward the possibility of having a policy that spoke to certifications that employees are required to get as part of their employment. This policy came forward because we had a situation that came up where we had an employee take the take the course, then they tested and they failed their test by a small amount. And the question came to me of, so do we offer the opportunity for the county to pay for a second test or not? What does that look like? And as I was going through trying to look things up, I realized we don't have anything that speaks to that. And so it's always been based on, I guess, what somebody was feeling that day, you know, is it
Right.
something we should do or we shouldn't do? And so we thought it would be a good idea to put it in writing. So before you is that policy. Now, this is not continuing education, like getting a degree or something like that. That's covered under a different policy. This is simply certifications that are required as part of an employment. And what I ended up doing is I had a department head meeting last month where I had all of the departments, both appointed and elected here. And we reviewed this policy because I wanted to make sure that we were being inclusive of what all departments have, because it's not necessarily a one size fits all when it comes to this, because there's different types of trainings depending on the department you're in. But the concept that is put forward in this policy seemed acceptable to all of the departments for those types of certifications that are required. And what this basically indicates is that if we have full or part-time employees that are required to take a certification as part of their employment, that the county will pay for the course, the materials, and the testing, which is something that we have always done. The clarification piece in here is that if for whatever reason there is a test that is taken and that employee does not pass that test, we recognize that there can be days when you're feeling off, maybe something happened in the family and they weren't able to take the test on the assigned date, maybe they were sick, there's different opportunities there. We said we will also then pay for one additional testing. And so that's what this policy outlines. Now, it also indicates that if an employee, after taking the second test, does not pass, then that is a discussion that they need to then have with their department head on whether they are capable of meeting the qualifications of that position, or if the employee wants to pay to take the test again. But that would be handled at the department head level. So basically, that is in essence what this policy is. It's just to kind of outline some of the practices that have been taking place, so that in the future, if a question comes up, they can refer back to a policy and have that direction.
Yeah.
So what we're asking for you today is to, if you have any questions, we can answer those. But ultimately, unless you have any changes, we would recommend that this Lenawee County required certification policy be referred to the full Board of Commissioners for adoption.
I have one question in regards to that.
Mhm.
If if you use your mic, just because people are listening. Yeah. if, you have a problem there where, you know, you've got different circumstances coming up, different things coming up, and, it doesn't include all employees, doesn't it make more sense to leave those kinds of decisions to the discretion of the county administrator?
So trying to understand the question. So you're saying after they've tested the first time and they haven't passed the test,
Yeah,
that rather than leaving it to the department head or that should come to the administrator's office to decide?
I just think that's a function of county government. I don't think you really need a policy on that, only to the, I'm not saying you don't need a policy, but I think those are just decisions that ought to be taken care of by the administration. I'm not so sure that this type of policy doesn't kind of limit what you can do. Because as you've indicated, you've got different people, you've got different type of employees.
Mhm.
Some employees you want to work with and keep. Other employees, you may develop an opinion aren't going to be a good fit. And I think nobody else can really answer those any better than the administration can.
Do you not get close to an unfair labor practice if you say, well, you did it for him? Why aren't you doing it for me?
Well, there are a couple things here. Going back to Commissioner Daley, what you were saying. The reason for the policy not only is to create clarity, for the employee, but I, as the county administrator, cannot go into a department and tell that department head whether their employee, should continue to work for the county or not work for the county. We work on it's kind of like a command structure, a military command structure, if you will, where I oversee those individuals within the administrator's office directly, all individuals here. And then I oversee the department heads for the appointed departments. I do not oversee or have a direct relationship with their employees. So the only ones that I'm responsible for are the department heads that run that department. So although I can see where you're saying this is an administrative function for the county administrator, this would for sure apply to all of the employees in the administrator's office. If one of them were to take a certification that is required for their position here and they did not pass the test the first time, we would have that discussion. Why did that happen? And based on that conversation, I would have the authority based on this policy to say, I will give you one more chance. However, if based on that conversation, I'm not sure that I want to continue with this employee, I also, as their direct department head and supervisor, have the ability to say, maybe this isn't going to work. That is basically what we're allowing the department heads to do for the employees that they have. Should they have an employee that after they did not pass the test the first time, but they see value in that employee, and there were some kind of underlying circumstances that happened on test day, they know that through this policy, they have the ability to say, all right, I can give you one more chance. However, the opposite is true too. It doesn't necessarily mean that we are required to give them a second chance to test. It gives us the ability to allow them to take a test a second time and the county pay for it. That's really what the clarity was here, is who pays.
That's right.
If we get past that second time, you know, if a department head says, all right, I understand, maybe you had a death in the family, you weren't able to prepare properly, I'm going to give you an opportunity to retest on the next test day. And if that still doesn't happen, that's where we've built in here, a further discussion needs to happen, because I'm not sure that the employee at that point, maybe they don't have the ability to perform the services that are required for that position. So that's really what this is trying to identify.
Or what if they were like 2 points off? They were like, you know, that's another thing. And it's like, they were so close that they kind of deserve one more shot. That's kind of the way I've looked at it. And have certifications, and I've never failed my test, but you're nervous during that day. And so I was just putting myself in those shoes, thinking that if I was like that close, that I would have appreciated like one more shot. So,
Well, and there are times on these certifications that you don't, I'm sorry, Chair.
Alright.
There are times you don't know what your score was. You just know it's a pass or a fail.
Yep.
And so you could have been just 2 points away, or you could have been 20 points away. But that's where that second opportunity kind of clarifies that also.
Mr. Van Dorn.
Two questions. First of all, I understand Commissioner Daley's position because sometimes department heads that run this thing, I mean, elected officials, I should say, get close to their employees, and it's a hard decision for them to make, so it would take it out of their hands. That's number one. I understand that side of it. Number two, my concern is on this side of it of where is the money coming from for their education? Is it from the budget from the department? Let's take the sheriff's department, for example, because he's his own elected official. Is that money coming from his budget, or is that coming from something out of general fund?
Keep in mind, in this particular example, the sheriff's office is general fund. We make that appropriation through the appropriation process, but there is an account number in almost every single budget that I can think of right now, whether it's general fund or non-general fund, that allows for employee development and certifications and testing. So they do have a budget. You may see it as conferences and seminars, something like that, in the budget, and they do have funding available.
And that's my concern. So theoretically, we can't stop them from authorizing the second payment because it's their budget.
With the elected officials, correct. If with an elected official, that's where it's different. Elected officials, the responsibility of our board and the county administrator is to recommend a budget for that department to operate within. We have absolutely no authority over the operations within that department, as it applies to day-to-day activities. The only control we have is through the budget process. Now, I will say though, given that, we do have, at least at this point in time, a great relationship with all of our elected offices. And so we do have those discussions. There's very open dialogue on regular basis with most of the department heads that are elected officials. But that is very true. Whether you have this policy or you don't have the policy, that is still true.
I know. That's what concerns me if you get into an unfair labor practice. So I would think, has this been discussed with every department head and elected official?
Yes, at our last department head meeting, including the sheriff, the register of deed, yeah, I believe all of them. I believe all of them were at the last department head and they had input on this.
And so they're proponents of this?
Yes.
Okay.
I did not have a single department head that opposed this policy.
Okay. Then I could see that.
I can too.
Do we have testing for certification or whatever that is outside the county? Say traveling to Lansing, Detroit, whatever.
There are some that have those kinds of certifications.
So in the second test, we would also pay for mileage or allow for transportation.
Whatever the related
Use of
expenses
vehicle.
are, correct. But I think that there are some that are done online, done right here. When you look at the county as a whole, there's a lot of different opportunities for that testing and what that certification looks like.
sometimes they're proctored, like one time I have a 2-test certification and I went to JCC or the Adrian one, and they proctored, meaning that the agency worked with them and I took the test there so that it was in a fair place and all of that. So it can be, different things, for sure.
Other questions, comments?
I would make the motion that we send this policy to Ways and Means or Board of Commissioners, whichever meeting it needs to go to.
That would be directed to the Board of Commissioners.
Board of Commissioners, okay, I make that motion.
I'd second that.
Moved and supported, is there any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
Like it.
Very well. Well done. Okay, we will move down to other business policy status overview.
All right, each of you should have, it's on the screen, as well as if you have a printed copy, there's a form that looks like this. These are the, policies that this board has reviewed, whether it's the current sitting board or not, but this committee itself has reviewed in the past, and you can see on the dates next to it. So as an example, accounts payable at the very top, you can see that it says policy number 2023-002. That means it was last reviewed in 2023. So we have reviewed a majority of all policies on this list. Those that are highlighted in kind of that pink color, salmon color up there. I do want to point out the clean air ordinance really should not be on this as a policy because it is actually an ordinance. So we plan on taking that off, and we may still need to review that ordinance, but it looks a little bit different in the approval process. And when you change an ordinance versus when you change a policy, there's different steps. So the only thing we have left that we really haven't done too much with is the photo ID badges policy, which was last reviewed in 2018, and the vehicle use policy, which was adopted in 2019. Now, those have been put out to the different departments. We have had some changes in department heads, which has delayed our final review of that. There's also some things included in both of those policies that are outdated by law. So there's a lot of changes that we have been looking at with those two policies. But what I wanted to do is bring these forward kind of as a recap to show all of the different policies and procedures that this board has reviewed over the past and is responsible for. And I don't know if any of you want to start over in reviewing any of these policies if you're not familiar with them, or if you want to wait and have a call of the chair when we meet. I kind of want to put that out to this group to figure out the direction that you want to go. And that's why I wanted to bring these forward, because I know that not all of you have been on this committee for a long time, to show all of the different policies and procedures that are out there and when they were last reviewed. So.
Discussion. Mr. Van Dorn.
Yeah, I understand for Commissioner Daly and Commissioner Blanco, this has been a real project for the last 2 years when all of us got together and sat down and looked at this. Some of the policies were 10 years older and older of that. And we decided right then and there it was time to go through and review every one of them so that we have a new date on the bottom. I guess the question comes in is that, now, for lack of reviewing these every month or having a meeting every month, probably after you get these last few done, to go to the call of the chair, I guess I just don't know if there needs to be some sort of recommendation that at least they be reviewed every so many years or whatever, or just let it go until somebody has a problem.
Well, I agree. I think that it effectively should be, once these three are completed in the ordinance, wouldn't be the purveyance of this committee anyways.
Right.
That would be the board. That would go to a call of the chair. If there is a need for a new policy or for a review of an existing policy for some reason, usually done at the call of the chair. But I think that needs discussion at the full board level, that we refer this matter for discussion to the full board and see if that's a general consensus. But I do agree with you. That should be the procedure.
I think a good point has been made, because these policies, when we first started doing this, some of them, as you indicated, had not been reviewed in a long time. And part of that review, when we did that, we found that there were policies that were just obsolete and we didn't need them any longer. And we did eliminate those. And then we found out that there were policies that we did not have that we probably should have, just like the one you recommended today. And so a lot of times things don't come up until we don't have a policy on something until it comes up. And we don't necessarily want to policy ourselves to death where everything, is referred back. But at the same time, there are times when it does make sense.
Mhm.
And so I think that I do agree with that. And I think that it would be important to kind of establish some sort of timeline that says, maybe policies should be reviewed whether it's every 5 years or whatever that looks like, to make sure that we haven't gotten outdated again. And I think that this board, the Policy and Procedures Committee have done a fantastic job over the last few years in looking at everything and dissecting it. We're making things current with current law. And I think that that's important as we move down the road.
Commissioner Van Dorn.
I would like to see this committee, though, make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners so that there's an outline there and we don't get into a whole discussion there. And quite frankly, I was thinking about this as Kimberly, as the administrator was talking about it, and maybe it'd be a good idea to just say that the policy review committee or the policy committee shall, meet immediately after the election to review all of the policies, because that's every 4 years, okay? To review all the policies to see if there's going to be any changes. So it doesn't mean that they've got to go in and look at every policy, but they can go through and see if there's anything that comes up in question and, make those changes. So maybe that recommendation to the board.
I agree with the desire or the need for a recommendation. However, if you make this, if you make it a specific meeting after the election, immediately after the election, are you referring to the existing committee, existing board, or in January?
Whoever the appointed committee would be, because
Okay.
as you know, they would be all reappointed at that point.
That's my point. You would have a new committee if you would.
Right.
Okay.
And then maybe some language about unless there is a need, for a review in the, in the middle or something.
Well, but, yeah,
I guess the point I was trying to make, and maybe I didn't explain it well, if it's immediately after the election, for example, in 3 years, immediately after the election would still be this committee right here for 2 months. 4 months, 2 months, whatever, depending on how the date falls.
Oh, gotcha.
1 month.
Election. Now, if they said, all right, we're going to start reviewing the committees for the ordinance, or the policies, you only got 2 months with that committee. So I think it should be a January
Right.
meeting.
Yeah.
With a new committee appointed.
And then in the meantime, the best comment is that it would be at the call of the chair. From now until the next election, this committee will meet at the call of the chair. And then that would kick in after the election.
I think we still have some we have to.
Oh, no, we got to do those too. Yeah, sorry. Right. But I mean, after that.
Sure. Yep.
And I would ask the administrator to draft a recommendation.
There you go.
I am writing down some of the notes that I'm hearing, and we will try to draft a motion to that effect. But we do have 2 more policies. Being honest, I don't see those policies being ready to come forward next month. It will probably be after the first of the year when we can get to those at some point. And that is the photo ID badges and the vehicle use policy, those 2. But following that, I think that, and we don't have to bring this to the full board quite yet, because we do have those 2 things to work out.
Right.
So it gives us some time to work out the language, but, I'm hearing that we want to maybe go to a process where following the January election and the appointment of the committees, that the new Policy and Procedure Committee meet to review, pardon?
November election.
Yes,
Following.
I'm sorry, but following the November election, the newly appointed Policy and Procedures Committee meet to review any policies and procedures that we have. And that at any time between that time and where we are now, that we could be brought together by a call of the chair. Because you never know, like I said, something may come up and we're like, you know what, we really feel that we have something that has impacted a current policy that we need to change, and we need it to be effective fairly quickly. So we could always do that.
So the recommendation here I'm hearing is that due to the fact that these two policies that we need addressed will not be available for this committee to actually debate until after the first of the year, that there is no need to meet final 2 months of this year.
Well, we're meeting in November. This is November, so I don't know that we have a need.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. I know it happened quickly. I don't know that we honestly have a need to meet in December because with the holidays and I know where we're at on those policies, I don't see us being ready to have anything for you. And I'm not sure about January, honestly, again, through the holidays we have there, but surely by February, we would be able to have something. But I can get back to you on that. We don't have to reschedule all the way to February at this point.
So I would say but my position as chair would be that we not meet until there's a call of the chair. That would just make it very clean and very easy. So whatever month we need to get that done, we'll just do it, call of the chair.
Sure.
Very good. Is there any further discussion on that issue? Mr. Van Dorn?
You might want to make that a motion because this came up in materials management and it was questioned when the call of the chair. A commissioner stated that, any committee can be at the call of the chair. It doesn't have to be recognized. I looked it up in Robert's Rules of Order. That's not true. If you want to go to the call of the chair versus a regular meeting, it needs to be a motion to be done because it's not automatic that you can go to the call of the chair.
Okay.
For a motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we move to become a call of the chair committee per all of those things that we discussed.
Second,
I'll support that.
moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign, the motion carries. Okay, is there any further discussion?
Different topic.
Okay. Any other business? Mr. Van Dorn?
Just because it kind of fits in with this thing, same thing with the testing. I got into this a number of months ago and I guess I didn't realize we have a policy at the county that we will pay your tuition to go to school, correct?
There are some clarifiers with that, but yes, we have a tuition reimbursement policy.
And under that tuition reimbursement, there's some requirements after you get your certificate, degree, whatever it is, correct?
Yes,
And is it my understanding that the sheriff's department does not fall under that rule?
that is my understanding that they have had situations more recently where they did have people get training and then left. The question becomes, is that training the same type of training that we're talking about under the educational reimbursement policy? Where the educational reimbursement policy refers to a degree, where the training that the sheriff's department receives is, what do they call that? When they send them to school, it is a school. It's a certification. It looks a little different. But I have had those conversations about that because we have put quite a bit of money into newer deputies and then had them leave. Now, more recently, the money that we have put into them, though, we have received through grant funding. And so it's not necessarily been general fund dollars that have gone into it. But I believe that that training fund has dried up and we do not have access to that anymore. So we probably do need to have some type of discussion about what that might look like, in particular for that department.
Mr. Van Dorn?
So, and I understand that. We have our local law enforcement expert here with us today, two of them. It's my understanding that a lot of these, even though they're not degrees, they're just certificate, it certainly makes you much more employable to somebody else that's paying a higher salary someplace if all of a sudden you have this special certificate, correct?
Actually, it's statutorily required.
Yeah. So, I would be hopeful that with the administrator, I had a conversation with the sheriff, so this isn't something that I'm blindsiding the sheriff on, because when I found out about this, I was a little taken back thinking that, you know, everyone else has this requirement that they have to stay with the county for so many years. I think, I would be hopeful that the administrator and the sheriff, cause he said that he was willing to look at that, So I would hope that the administrator and the sheriff could get together and maybe we could find some sort of way to put that together.
I would indicate my experience with the sheriff has been that when he says he's going to look at something, it's a year before you hear from him. There's all kinds of issues over there that have been unresolved for a year at a time. And the fact that we paid for training to train officers here and are leaving that sheriff's department to go to other jurisdictions that pay less than they were making here, are all indications that there's serious issues over there.
And if I may follow up on that, and that's the reason that I'd like the administrator to become involved, because as we know, nobody's gonna wait a year here when we give it to the administrator to get
Right.
done. I mean, it's gonna, she's gonna bulldog the thing, so I would be hopeful that we can push that a little further forward, Commissioner Daley over there.
I think, not to belabor, but I think, do we have a form that the employee would sign indicating, I am aware that if I leave within a certain time frame, I must reimburse the county for training?
So when it
Or
comes.
simply part of the handbook?
Yeah, when it comes to the educational reimbursement policy, there is language. And what we're looking at, it is for the commissioners here that are newer on this committee, it is a 5-year obligation of employment. It is a decreasing, basically every year, 20% is forgiven to the point where after 5 years of employment, 100% of what was paid by the county taxpayers is forgiven. We have had employees who have left prior to the 5 years being fulfilled. And HR is very good at tracking that and trying to work with those employees to take whatever we can from their final paycheck. If they're getting paid out for days, paid time off that they did not take, going from there and working out repayment plans to make the county whole. So, but it is difficult when we do have employees that are leaving very quickly after those kind of expenditures. So yes, I will talk to the sheriff and see what we can get into.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot there. Your paid for it.
Any further discussion? Tom,
Those are good.
any other business to be brought to this committee? Any other business to be brought to this committee? Any public comment? Public members? Okay, before I ask for an adjourn, I want it to be clear that we will not be scheduling policy procedure meetings until such time as the call of the chair. From this point forward,
Correct.
if approved by the board.
Yes.
Administrator Murphy.
And I just want to say, we will be diligent in trying to get those last 2 policies reviewed and brought to you. You have access to them if you want to see what they look like at any time going to the website, but we will try to work on getting those to you, and we will communicate through the chair of this board when we're ready to bring those forward.
Thank you. Okay, is any other business? Any other business? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's moved and supported. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are adjourned.